Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next edition of AmiSights. I'm Ami Kasser, your host, along with my co-host, Lynn Ozer, a.k.a. SBA Queen. And so excited to have one of our colleagues on with us, Julie Zarr. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
One of my favorite shows we have is when we get a real live entrepreneur on the show to tell us his story of where he's done, what he's doing, how he's going. And today couldn't be more excited to have Jeffrey Peterson, who is the new owner of a business called The Wash in Washington State. And in full transparency, and some of what we'll talk about, we helped Jeffrey through his SBA process to buy the business. Jeffrey, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Love for you to start. Just tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
All right. Yeah, sure. I get excited when I get an opportunity to tell. I myself, a father of four, a grandfather of three. Two of my sons are high functioning autistic. This is the premise and the background for everything I'm moving forward. With my sons, the ones that have autism, 26 and 22, Alexander and Christopher. Mama Bear and Papa Bear was always very protective of those guys. Everywhere they went, everything they did. And it may have not gave them opportunity to branch out on their own and learn those skill sets. So with that being said, we allowed them to be a part of a local community organization, Columbia Ability Alliance, that taught them, cooking classes, knife skills, life skills, and then subsequently, working skills, being around customer service and things of that nature. Once they started that, they blossomed. Alexander was more verbal, just talking, and it was like, Dad, I'm working just like you. I was like, you sure are, son. He said, Dad, I get a check just like you. I can go shopping. And that was a tear-jerking moment for me. And so, as we move forward, I've always wanted to know, having a Proverbs 13:22 thought process, what I'm going to do for my kids and my grandkids. What can I do for them? Because their career aspirations aren't CEOs. They're not looking to be, the next pipe welder, in a nuclear plant, things of that nature. So I wanted to always find something that they can do. And by working with the other organization, CAA, I learned they can grow and they can do a lot more than we thought. So I started looking online, and as most people, YouTube University. So I got on YouTube and was trying to figure out, okay, what would it be good for my guys, and what would it be good for? Because the first and foremost, I want to hire those with developmental disabilities. And we found laundry services, the laundromat, and I was like, wow, this is something that's in a safe environment. This is a community-based business. This is something that is during COVID-19, it was an essential business. This is something that's repetitive and not dangerous. And it's forward facing to the community. So I was like, okay, let's look into this a little bit more. So start developing a business plan. Like Julie mentioned, I was working with a mutual associate. With my development plan and going into requesting for funding. I went through a couple iterations with that. The last institution, was been bought and they were risk adverse on a startup. So Julie came about, so I can we can help you. And she absolutely did, with quite a few options actually. And so the overall plan and what we're going to do in our laundromat called The Wash in Tri-Cities, we're going to do pickup and delivery. We're going to do wash and fold. Part of that SBA 7A, we got 2 EV vans to do pickup and delivery in our community. We're gonna touch that environmental ticket. We're gonna touch that social impact. But first and foremost, the company, the business is called The Wash. It's owned by my company, Esprit de Corps. And having that spirit of team, to be a part of a group. I want my employees to have a safe place to come to work. I want them to be prideful in where they're going. Have a living wage and be safe with a group of people that's in understand an inclusive environment, and then give a quality product to our community. We're gonna be sanitizing with ozone. We will have a self-service laundromat, so we'll have washers and dryers, like 40 washers and 46 dryers. So it's gonna be bright, big. It's not gonna be that stereotypical laundromat, like, oh, this dreary, everybody's running around and baskets bumping into your knees type of place. This is the new modern bright, welcoming, cashless business. And so, with that being said, as part of that business, we're going to do wash, dry, and fold, where individuals can drop off their clothing. Busy moms, busy dads, busy professionals, those that are traveling doing work. Because I work in the industry of construction and startup and maintenance and outages and things of that nature at plants. So you got travelers that come in that they're here to work 7 days a week. They're not here to wash clothes, and we want to do that for them. But with that being said, we want to have a 24-hour a day, 7 day a week that people can safely come and work. And then there's a family aspect to it too as well. I'm making a small section in the laundromat that's dedicated for children, and it's going to be a read, play, and learn environment. We're going to have a wall that's going to be all sensory and touch things for the youngins. While mom and dad are doing their clothes, and a little small corral area so they can see them with cameras and things of that nature. And then we'll provide the necessities, the snacks and drinks and things of that nature in the business. Um, that's the wash. That's our mission. Our mission is to, and it's a parallel, but I'm going to always start off with hiring those who need that extra help, those who that developmental disabilities, on the spectrum, and for like delivery drivers. I'm an old vet. That's why I got my Air Force shirt on, just to show, I want to hire a vet or two who doesn't want to be cooped up inside of a laundromat, but wants to be out and free and delivering and meeting people and be the face of our business, who's been there and done that before. That's what we're aspiring to do. We're on the right track. We've partnered with a community organization called Columbia Ability Alliance. They're a for-profit and a nonprofit. They're for-profit is their resource for the nonprofit for those with developmental disabilities, and they have an employment service. And so with them, and this is the same organization Alex and Christopher went through. So they're on board to help me interview and source, and clientele and work shadow, build that relationship with the new employee, and then understand, that with those challenges, most people that's on that type of assistance, Medicare or Medicaid in that case, can't work 8-hour days. They don't do 10-hour days. They need a 4-hour day. They need a 6-hour day. They may even need a 3-hour day. And so we have to work around those restraints so they can once continue their care, their benefits, but also have a place to work, place to go to, and having that understanding because we've done that with our guys as well.
I wanted to know, how did you find Julie?
I found Julie, like I said, it was a mutual associate of ours. I went through my ROBS process to roll over for small business, and I was working with the institution. That banking institution got bought out right at the tail end of us closing on a loan. So, that portion itself set me back. But a mutual friend said, I know somebody. That can get this for you. And I have faith in you and your business plan. I've seen it. And they introduced us to Julie, and Julie took it from there. Julie made it painless. There's a transfer of documentation and things of that nature, but she went through my business plan, went through our documentation, and it got me aligned with, and they've been great all the way through. We've closed, probably a month ago now, Julie. Yeah, about a month ago now.
Close, yep.
Yeah, we were already actively engaged in, construction and design and permitting and all that prior to closing of the loan. And so now we're on the catch-up end of this one, finishing up the construction and moving forward. So that's how Julie and I met. We met weekly. And so, just that she was my sounding board to let me know, okay, does this sound right? Because this is my first SBA loan. Not my first business, but first SBA loan. So, am I asking the right questions? I always ask, because sometimes if you don't know what to ask.
But Lynn, to your point, Jeffrey is literally like the best client, because the first time I met him, I had everything within like 30 minutes. Because
The first time and the last time that ever happened to you, Julie?
But pretty much, yeah. And honestly, if he could have actually closed earlier, which was no fault of anybody other than a third party that none of us had any control over,
Correct.
we would have 100% been closed a long time before that.
So Jeffrey,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to celebrate you, and we get what we do is pretty technical over here, and sometimes we get stuck in the weeds of it. and fighting with, rules and regs and technicalities and banks and credit officers and contractors and lawyers and da-da-da. And sometimes we don't get enough chance to take a step back and remember what we're celebrating and who we're doing. And I applaud your story. Can you take us a little bit back and a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get here? Like what have you done before that got you to this point?
Yeah. So myself, in the beginning, I'm originally from Augusta, Georgia, and I'm a military brat and prior military myself. I worked with Department of Energy as a contractor for many years. Transferred up from Savannah River site to, in the Tri-Cities, we have the Hanford project, which is legacy Manhattan project. There's 50 million gallons of nuclear waste that needs to be vitrified and keep from leaking into the soil. And my role is to commission and test this plant, which we've successfully done. But over the years, I went from construction to managing small teams, managing large teams, building SOPs, building programs, getting programs initiated, letting it go and letting it run on its own on a construction, on a startup of a physical plant, and then the commissioning operations. So I definitely had the paperwork background. So that's probably why it helped me with Julie, to have everything aligned and in order. But my background is dealing with people and small groups. I myself, fraternally, I'm a Shriner, so I've been around, children and things of that nature my entire life. And this is always an initiative that I've always wanted to be a part of, and I wanted to do something more besides, just being on a board of their organization. I wanted to see what I can do on my own, and in return, it would benefit family and the community too as well. So that's kind of how I got there. It was a zigzag path, from southeast Georgia to southeast Washington State. But this is where I'm supposed to be. It's been divine. I can say that.
Well, I think, Jeffrey, you're actually leaving out one important part.
Okay. Tell me.
Your ex-wife, significant other scenario and how you guys met that kind of led
Sure.
to the wash situation.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because she's going to watch this. But I can't believe you didn't even mention my name. So
You're not in trouble
Andrew,
anymore.
thank you.
Just saying.
Thank you for that. So that's what you always been by my right hand every time to keep me going. Yeah. So Andrea, she's my ex-wife, but we live together. We're back together. We went through like life. We had had some hiccups in the road, and we realized nobody likes us, so we stayed together. In short,
I like that story.
She's the mother of our sons. Jeffrey's the oldest, Alexander, Christopher, and then my daughter Anaya. So we met, prior to me going into the Air Force, in a laundromat, and we worked,
Comes full circle.
like an off-premises laundry, doing clothing, clothing, not fabrication, but preparation for sale, where we had to put the names and the name tags and sizes on blue jeans like Hager and Oshkosh Gosh and things of that nature. And then there's a dry cleaner there on premises. But that's where we met, and that's where our oldest son came about, Jeffrey. And so I went to the Air Force. After that, so okay, Jeffrey's on his way. I guess time to do some things, a little bit different, and not ever thinking, Silverstein's Cleaners is the cleaners in Augusta, Georgia, so they see us. Hey, that's how we got started. I went into the Air Force and got into the maintenance, aircraft maintenance and background. But she's my chief operating officer. She's going to be the one that's I still have a day job, but she'll be there on the front lines, getting things going and having that motherly as well as that experience with those with developmental disabilities. And so she's actively, like right now, going off to a seminar with CAA to prep for where we start hiring and de-escalation and things of that nature, and kind of working through it. So that's my ace, and thank you, Julie, for that, because without her driving and pushing and being in the background, with me, I wouldn't be this.
So with your background, are you
Mhm.
able to fix the washing machines if, God forbid, one of them breaks, or that's not your bailiwick?
I
Or you
can't.
have that?
I am very mechanically inclined, so all but electrical. So
Okay.
I can turn off the power and I can tear it apart and put it back together. So, with everything being brand new, I hope I don't have to do that for the next few years or so,
Yeah, I
you know,
know. I know, but I
but,
remember
but I'll
in
be
my
prepared.
back in the day making loans to a laundromat, and that was always the number one question is who's going to fix these machines? Because if one of them's down, your projections are off.
Exactly. And that's true. But that's one thing I'm blessed to have is a little bit of mechanical
That's great.
knowledge. So I can get in there and place belts and drums and things of that nature.
What is your projected opening date?
So my projected it's first quarter this year. I'm targeting the end of February, but I just because of construction and how things happen, so I'm prepared to. I've scheduled with the Chamber of Commerce to do a ribbon cutting at the for grand opening at the end of March. So to be a safe bet. So anywhere I'm targeting end of February to that time frame to have everything. The way things are going, we're on target right now, and the hard part is kind of behind.
Jeffrey, can you tell us, for the benefit of our listeners who might be thinking about starting their own business one day, can you tell us a little bit about your steps along the journey, how you decided, how you built your business plan, who helped you, how advised you, and how you got from A to breaking ground?
Okay. For me, like I said, I started off with I find myself like to learn on my own in a sense, So I started off with YouTube University, and to be honest with you, I got on YouTube and I just started watching about new businesses, and then I started watching videos on developing business plans. Then I started watching videos on the laundry industry, and then got associated with a coin laundry association from YouTube. And so with that being said, I started developing as I explained to you what we want to do in the community, but how we can fund that is how I started developing my performa and my business plan. I use my tools, AI, OpenAI, to help review my processes, my numbers, crosswalk. Being a veteran, there's other small business development council I work with locally to kind of go over my business plan once I thought I had it in a final, which I was in a good place. I find myself pretty good with paper because of my day job. Developed that business plan in parallel. I had a 401k that was just sitting there, and I can use that money to move forward as my kickoff, and understanding I needed a down payment for whatever my loan's going to be. I'm going to need a down payment for that. So I initiated the Robs, did their research. Again, another YouTube University environment. I watched and read and then started asking AI, hey, what does this mean? And using the tools, everything I had in front of me. I joined the Coin Laundry Association, and there was how to start a laundromat seminar in Chicago. And we took off. We went to Chicago and did that. That was one of our first initiatives of learning the business. Fell in love with the organization and the whole process. Made it come together and said it was something we can do. It was it's attainable. You know, Understanding it's capital heavy up front with equipment and things of that nature. Finding capital funding is going to be a good thing. Had excellent credit background. Had some money in the bank to actually put a down payment. I had a home and worked towards a home equity line of credit too to add to it. That's how we got started. Andrea and I had her go through the business plan, and then we started developing logos, and it became real before the paperwork was real to us.
How long did it take from the idea until you started construction?
I'm a year all in. Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah. From year all in from, hey, this sounds like a good idea to a couple institutions and banking changes to meeting Julie and what do we say, the last 6 months? Yeah. So the last 6 months we're finalizing everything to where I am today. And today I have underground utilities in, concrete pour on Monday. Once the base utilities are in, everything else is framing, quick, fast. Contractors lined up for decoration and things of that nature, and equipment deliveries. I continue to knock on wood, but I says it's been divine every step of the way that things have been going well.
I love it. Jeffrey, who helped you with the ROBs?
Solo ROBs. Yeah, solo.
So for our listeners to understand, sometimes you can use your 4K to actually invest in your business. and for some of the money for your business. And that's what a ROB stands for.
Just one caveat, it has to be a non-active, okay?
Right,
So
from a
if you
former
change
employer.
from a former employer, and so that gives it the ability to roll over into an S corp.
Very cool. How you imagine keeping your day job and getting this thing up and running? Do you plan to keep your day job? How's that all going to work?
You know, I want to have to take that day by day. But right now I plan on keeping my day job. At this point in time in my career, I'm able to work from home and sometimes and able to go out to site. I have teams, so I'm able to multitask quite a bit. I plan on when I check out at 5 p.m. to be right there in the laundromat till close to 9 p.m. It's going to be 24 hours, so that's just buttoning up the attendant area. I plan on spending my weekends there. Again, working with Andrea. She'll be there during the day for me. My sons will be there as well, and then we'll have new employees, that we're going to hire, a manager type to kind of learn with us as we grow. I've developed, some of the SOPs, and so with that, manager type and with Andrea to kind of fine tune those standard operating procedures to make sure we're running smoothly. So that's our plan, and then we'll see what cash flow comes in, and that will determine if I'm able to release the corporate side of work and work on my own business full time, or do I need a little bit more time? Already aspiring for another location, so I'm already got it
Boy,
planned. So I hope to be approaching funding again, at the end of 2026 for another operation. But I got to look at the books and see what the numbers look like, and cash flow and things of that nature. But that's my plan.
Julie, what was the most challenging part of this loan application?
Actually, there wasn't. I mean, literally, when I got Jeffrey's contact information, he sent me an entire package. Our biggest challenge was we got 2 term sheets, but we had the first one that for some reason we couldn't do. Jeffrey's like the ideal customer because he is very organized and he has everything together. So when you say, I need this, it's there like within 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's a blessing and it's a curse, because when I ask for things, I expect it in 2 minutes, and usually it doesn't happen either way. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, what have your surprises been so far?
Surprises. The surprise will have to be in the beginning when the first lending institution, we're right there at closing, and they get bought out by another bank and that are risk averse, and being that close. That's my first surprise and gut wrenching feeling. But things happen for a reason always. So if you sit back and you keep driving forward, things will change, and then that's where Julie came about. MultiFunding come about. They've been great so far, and the team has been great to get me to where we are today.
I would just say to our listeners, and I'm sure that Julie and Lynn will agree with me, keep your day job as long as you possibly can.
Yeah. It's definitely a comfort area that I'm not trying to quit it anytime soon.
So many
And
times
that's good.
see people quit too early or too fast, and they lose that cash flow, and it can become really hurtful. So I applaud you, and I know sometimes it can be tempting just to say, I want to be done with this, but it's the right thing to do. And I also want to remind our listeners that you can do SBA loans for startups, right? This is a great story, and says a lot about what the SBA is all about. Now, sometimes a startup is a little bit more difficult to fund because it's based on projections and a story, but this story and your purpose in the community and your exclusivity, it's a beautiful thing, and I applaud you for it.
Thank you very much.
Do you have any competition in that area for a laundromat? In a lot of places, there's a great need for them. In other places, there's more than enough. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so in my area in Tri-Cities, Richland, Pasco, and Kennewick, we do have laundromats in our community. There's only one that just opened last year that has the modern feel to it. They're still a coin-operated industry and store, but with the rest of the ones that are in our community, they're either small, and there's a term in the industry, and it's called the zombie mat. So that first that first thought when people think of laundromats, oh, dingy, dark, dreary, the ones that are here are dated and have that feel when you come in. This one, I think, will not have the competition or any competition for quite some time, hopefully, in this area. Bright, big, 800 square feet facility, which is very rare for our laundromat. Built-in sanitization with ozone, which is something you don't see in the industry, and with some new age equipment, and then all cashless. So Jeffrey's not coming in there with buckets of quarters and dumping them out in the air there, and in and out and going out through the back door. We're going innovative with card services.
I'm sort of smiling because a couple of years ago we were working with an influencer who was starting this whole brand. I won't name her, around getting on sort of corporate people to buy cash flowing businesses and to fund them. And her whole big thing was that the first business you got to buy is a laundromat. And all these people would come, I want to buy a laundromat. And I'm like, really? Have you looked at their tax return and how are you going to fund that thing?
Yeah. And it's funny. It's a trend now. Laundromat has become a trend. Maybe because I'm into it and I'm focusing on it more. But the purchase of that term I'm used, those zombie mats, those old ones, and retooling them and getting new equipment and sanding them up and making them bright and clean and welcoming, is becoming a thing. But I just don't have a lot of competition in my area, so I hope to branch out and eventually I want five. Five is my target number. Yeah, that's my target number. But for this area where everybody knows, where to go to get your laundry done, to go do it or have it done for you. And guess what? You're helping out the community too.
Are your sons excited about it?
Yeah, Alex is excited. Alex is the most verbal one out of it. Christopher's quiet. He's a quiet guy. He's my gentle giant. That's what I call him. But Alexander, I take him in and look at it. I was like, you're going to be the manager. He's like, what? That's it. I'm going to make you the manager. I said, but we're going to learn together, and, we're going to do these things slowly. And, I want you to answer the phone. He said, I can do that because he works at Wingstop right now, and this is where he had transitioned, okay, this is the mama bear, papa bear thing where I don't want him around hot grease and hot food. I went in about a month ago just to stop in to see how things are going. He's got a phone to one ear and he's taking orders. He's on the computer and he's exchanging cash and he's getting orders to the customers. And then he's out cleaning the tables and he's just doing everything possible in that business. And so I said, you know what? I want you to do that in your
My
own
business.
business. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? So absolutely a family thing. So I want you to be able to do that and have pride in that camaraderie, that esprit de corps of the wash, and so he and his brother, Christopher, I got plans for him there's going to be vending, we're going to have vending machines, or I want him to, keep the vending machine stock and, work with the customers and get customers in. There's people that of age that, clothes are heavy, I want to meet him at the door with a smile, and so that's our initiative. Yeah. Really excited to get going.
Have you thought about how you're going to market it to start?
Yeah, so currently we do have a webpage out there already. So it is www.the-wash.com. On that webpage, it lays out our business profile, our why we're doing this. So some of the things we've talked about today, and also showing progress photos of what's going on inside the laundromat, so we can see the construction as it. We're also we're on Meta. So we have Facebook and Instagram. So our Instagram is the Wash 509. And then Facebook is the Wash Tri-Cities. And so we have that. Just started a LinkedIn to market to as well. We got a LinkedIn page with the Wash under Jeffrey and Andrea Peterson. So, we're kind of tagging that. And then things like this, this opportunity is phenomenal to be able to speak with you all and then share what MultiFunding has done for me in this business. This is something I want to directly tag to my homepage. So people can see it and hear it and realize this is not a fly by night opportunity. This is something we plan to be here for a lifetime, hopefully.
I encourage you to share, not to be shy, to share your story of your purpose.
Yeah, I try to. That's always been kind of a thing. I get excited to share it, and I feel good about sharing it. But sometimes I think about it. I don't know. I want people to know that we truly have a reason for this business. But in the same breath. I think that's my challenge. In the same breath, we're going to provide you a quality product. So we want to give you a quality product, the highest of standards. And then in return, you're going to be helping out those who could use an additional help too as well. So, yeah.
I think it's great. I was going to ask you a question about when you went to write your business plan. What do you think advice you would give to our listeners who are thinking about starting a business, but taking that step into writing a business plan is scary, and sometimes that stops people in their tracks. So how do you do that? What was the first thing you did?
One is to say, understand that you need to be diligent. You need to take it through. It's going to be a daunting task. You're not going into something that is going to be very easy to perform. And if it is easy, then you may not have all the information that you need into it. So be prepared for that, and then start small. I started off on a napkin, and then it was a 8.5 by 11 printer paper, and I'm writing, of what I want to do and why, and what our services are gonna be, and how much is it gonna cost, and this and that. And I start putting those things together. And then I spent a lot of time. It's the social media era, and world. I spent a lot of time on YouTube. You'd be surprised what information is there. You don't take all of it to heart, but you take a tidbit. You take a tidbit from everything you listen to, and then you use your tools, and you talk. Small Business Development Council located near me was a help. I went to our local chamber of commerce, that had them proof, after I was pretty well, they're like, at it, you don't need us. You're done, which is a good feeling, I'll also, it's a couple other organizations that I communicated with, just start talking about small business. But that business plan, that's how I got to doing it. I typed up something in Word, and what I thought a business plan was, and I wrote it like a resume in the sense, because that was my mindset. And then I use my tools, and I say my tools have been AI nowadays. AI is a good resource, but you must know your details. You must know your information. You can't let AI do it for you, because you'll be selling rocket ships in Mars in the middle of a summary statement in here. So you need to make sure. So lastly, your due diligence, that research, your market research and getting that information. Do that due diligence and know your numbers, because once you've written it, it's like a resume. It can look pretty, but when you put it in front of a lending institution and they start asking questions about, this number and this line item, you got to be able to speak to it and know it inside out. It's your baby. It is your baby, and so due diligence and know your information, but be patient. It doesn't come in. You don't turn around from a beginning until opening the doors in the business in 3 months, in most cases.
Right. Good.
You got some duration.
Sure.
Jeffrey, tell us a funny story that happened with Julie while you were working with her so we could tease her about it.
I don't know. I think she was getting snowed in. I think every time I was talking to her. Yeah.
That was back in August, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I said, this should be shorts and t-shirts. She was like, no, I'm in parkas and it's like snow outside. It's like, okay. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. I always wanted to hear, what was the weather like? What's new?
And who knows what the weather's like up there in Montana?
Yeah, it's just like, I'm not into the warm weather and the suns. You like the cooler atmosphere, don't you, Julie?
I like the wine in your area, and that's all that matters.
There you go. It can make it whatever temperature you want it to.
Wine in Washington. But yeah, I was in Florida with her once. She did not like it. She doesn't like the hot weather.
Too hot. Oh my Lord, it killed me.
Too hot, too humid. Totally get it.
100%.
So Jeffrey, I just want to wish you the very best of luck and ask you if you'll be willing to come back on in a year or so and tell us how it's going, what you've learned.
Yeah.
I absolutely would. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the business. I appreciate everything that Julie's provided and MultiFunding has provided me to get me through this point. Thank you for letting me tell the story. It is a good feeling to be able to express and like I said, this was my baby, and I'm talking about my babies, my kids, too as well.
Great.
But yeah, as often as you would like, I'll be willing to, share what's going on, what's new, and what's coming forward, and where else MultiFunding is going to help me in the future.
What's your closest airport so I can come visit sometime if I'm welcome?
Pasco Airport.
Okay.
It's a small regional airport, so most likely you're going to come into Seattle or you're going to come into Salt Lake. Most likely
no
Salt Lake.
stops from Philly.
No nonstops from Philly. I'm sorry. You're gonna take the little regional one. You want to do that because the next major airport's like 3.5 hours or 2.5 hours away. So after all that traveling coming from the East Coast, you want to land right in my back door. Then I can be at the airport in 5 minutes to come get you and, pour you a glass of wine and say, welcome to the Tri-Cities.
Well,
That's
we appreciate you, and we're so excited for you. I think
That's great.
sometimes we forget in all the stress of what we do, the good. So wish you God bless and Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Great to
And
meet
like I
you,
said,
Jeffrey. Best wishes to you.
Take care.
I'll
my
be
pleasure.
waiting to hear how you are next year at this time.
Well, Nan, I look forward to speaking with you too as well.
Okay.
Julie, I know Julie will be in contact. Have a blessed one. Take care. Thank you very much.